What if I told you Christmas wasn't always about joy and goodwill, that it has a darker past than you might imagine? Yes, you heard that right. Our beloved holiday, often seen as a beacon of joy, unity, and the spirit of giving, hasn't always been all sugar plums and candy canes. While today we associate Christmas with family gatherings, gift exchanges, and a jolly man in a red suit, the roots of this holiday are steeped in a history that might surprise you. The common understanding of Christmas as a time of peace and goodwill towards all, well, let's just say it wasn't always so. From its pagan roots, through its Christian adoption and transformation, to the darker aspects of folklore and the modern commercialization, the story of Christmas is as varied as the cultures that celebrate it. So buckle up and prepare for a journey through time. Hold on to your stockings, we're about to unwrap the darker history of Christmas. Long before the birth of Christ, midwinter celebrations were anything but peaceful. To understand the true roots of Christmas, we must venture back in time to the era of the ancient Romans. In the midst of winter's chill, the Romans indulged in a festival known as Saturnalia, in honor of Saturn, the god of agriculture and time. This was no quiet, solemn affair. Rather, it was a time of excessive drinking, lawlessness and debauchery, a period when societal norms were turned on their heads and chaos reigned supreme. Saturnalia kicked off around December 17th and lasted for about a week. During this time, Roman courts were closed and no one could be punished for damaging property or injuring people. It was a time of revelry and wild abandon, where the normal social order was completely reversed. Slaves were served by their masters, and everyone, rich or poor, free or enslaved, engaged in feasting, gambling, singing, and even public nudity. It was, in essence, a week-long party of epic proportions. In addition to Saturnalia, the Romans also celebrated the birth of the invincible sun, Sol Invictus, on December 25th. This day was seen as the rebirth of the sun god, as it followed the winter solstice, the shortest day of the year. It was a time of great joy and celebration, infused with a sense of hope and renewal. Now you might be wondering, what does all this have to do with Christmas? Well, as Christianity spread throughout the Roman Empire, early church leaders found it difficult to abolish these popular pagan traditions. Instead, they adopted and adapted them, gradually transforming these wild celebrations into the more serene holiday we know today. So the first Christmas festivities were less about family gatherings and more about public disorder. Interesting, isn't it? When Christianity spread, the church had a hard time taming these wild celebrations. The early church, trying to establish its footing in a world brimming with pagan traditions, was met with a conundrum. How could it replace these deeply ingrained pagan celebrations with the celebration of Christ's birth? The church fathers decided on a strategy of substitution rather than eradication. They sought to replace the popular pagan winter solstice festivals with the celebration of the birth of Christ. However, this transition was not without its challenges. The populace was resistant, clinging to their time-honored traditions and festivities. The church, in its wisdom, chose a date that coincided with the winter solstice. December 25th became the official date of Christ's birth, even though there was no biblical reference to support this. It was a strategic move designed to co-opt the existing pagan celebrations, and in doing so, ease the transition from paganism to Christianity. Yet the Christianization of these pagan traditions was not a smooth process. The church found it difficult to control the wild revelries associated with these festivals. The populace continued to celebrate with feasting, drinking, and merrymaking, much to the church's chagrin. Over time, however, a blending of traditions occurred. Elements from the pagan festivals were incorporated into the Christian celebration of Christmas. The Yule log, the Christmas tree, the exchange of gifts, all these have their roots in pagan traditions. The church's attempts to Christianize these celebrations were only partially successful. The people adapted, incorporating elements of their old traditions into the new Christian celebration. In doing so, they created a hybrid celebration, a fusion of pagan and Christian traditions that we recognize today as Christmas. Despite the church's efforts, the wild, chaotic nature of the original pagan celebrations never fully disappeared. The church managed to put Christ in Christmas, but couldn't entirely take the chaos out of it. This blending of traditions has left us with a Christmas that is both a solemn religious celebration and a time for joyous revelry. Ever heard of Krampus, the Christmas devil? Yes, you heard it right. Amid the festive cheer and jingle bells, there lurks a darker side to Christmas folklore that's not often discussed. Picture this: towering figures cloaked in shadows, brandishing switches and chains, prowling the streets on Christmas Eve. No, this isn't a scene from a horror movie. This is how Christmas was once celebrated in certain parts of the world. Enter Krampus, a horned, anthropomorphic figure from Central European folklore. Often depicted with a devilish grin, cloven hooves, and a long pointed tongue, Krampus is the antithesis of Saint Nicholas. While Saint Nick rewards well-behaved children with gifts, Krampus is there to punish those who have misbehaved. The tale goes that he would swat naughty children with birch branches, or, in more extreme versions, drag them off to his lair in the underworld. But Krampus isn't the only dark figure lurking in the shadows of Christmas folklore. In the Pennsylvania Dutch regions of the United States, children were visited by Belsnickel, a disheveled man dressed in furs with a mask and a whip. Belsnickel would arrive a few weeks before Christmas to check on children's behavior. Good children might receive candies thrown on the floor, but woe betide those who rushed too greedily. Belsnickel's whip was always at the ready. These ominous figures might seem far removed from the image of Christmas we celebrate today, but they served an important purpose in their time. They were not merely instruments of terror, but reminders of the moral and social codes that communities live by. A reminder that good behavior was rewarded and misdeeds were not taken lightly. As we unwrap our presents and feast on Christmas pudding, let's spare a thought for these darker aspects of Christmas folklore. Far from dampening the holiday spirit, they add a rich layer of complexity to a festival that's celebrated by billions around the world. It seems the naughty list had some rather terrifying enforcers. Today, the biggest threat to Christmas might not be pagan revelry or scary folklore, but rather commercialization. This is the era of the modern Christmas, where the focus has shifted dramatically from the religious and familial aspects of the holiday towards consumerism. But what does this mean for the spirit of Christmas? In the past, Christmas was a time for reflection, gratitude, and togetherness. It was an occasion to celebrate the birth of Christ, to enjoy family gatherings, to share meals and exchange handmade gifts. However, in the modern world, Christmas has transformed into a commercial spectacle that begins as early as October and often stretches into the new year. The season of goodwill has turned into a season of spending. Retailers vie for attention with bright lights, catchy jingles, and enticing sales, urging consumers to buy, buy, buy. The pressure to purchase the perfect gifts, to host the most lavish parties, and to create picture-perfect holiday memories can lead to significant stress and financial strain. And it's not just about the monetary cost. The environmental impact of Christmas is staggering. Think about the millions of Christmas trees cut down every year, the billions of Christmas cards sent, and the massive amount of wrapping paper that ends up in landfills. Then there's the energy consumption from the twinkling lights and the carbon emissions from the increased travel. We must also consider the human cost. Behind the scenes, workers in factories across the globe often work long hours in poor conditions to produce the toys, electronics, and other goods that fill our Christmas stockings. But despite these challenges, there is hope. Many people are beginning to question the commercialization of Christmas and are seeking ways to return to a more meaningful, sustainable celebration. They are choosing to buy less to make more, to give experiences rather than things. In the end, the question we must ask ourselves is this: so, has the joy of giving turned into the stress of shopping? As we move into the future, it will be up to us to decide what Christmas truly means and how we choose to celebrate it. Christmas, it seems, has always had a bit of a shadow over it, hasn't it? From its pagan roots marked by wild revelry and debauchery, to its Christian adoption and transformation, riddled with power struggles and religious conflicts. Even the folklore associated with the season isn't as jolly as we'd like to think. Tales of Krampus, the Christmas devil, and the eerie ghost stories of Victorian England all contribute to a less than merry picture. Fast forward to today, and the shadow has morphed into a different form. The modern commercialization of Christmas has led to a season of stress, debt, and overconsumption, a far cry from the peace on earth we sing about. It's a fascinating journey, isn't it? From ancient solstice celebrations to the frantic shopping frenzy of today's Christmas Eve. Next time you're roasting chestnuts by an open fire, spare a thought for the darker history that brought us our modern Christmas.